Sibbity 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 ha. Sibbity 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 ha. A dab on the bitches. A dab. Yo, what up, fam? It's your boy back with another episode of MMTISTY. And on today's episode, we are talking about World End Girlfriend's Hurtbreak Wonderland. Japanese ambient, classical, electronica, post-rock art movement, World's End Girlfriend. Now, this is probably an artist that not a lot of you guys have ever heard of. In fact, I hadn't heard of this guy until recently, about a couple of years ago. I just happened to find his album recommended to somebody in the comments of just a random video of mine. And it was also at a time that, you know, I wanted to explore all sorts of different kinds of music, and this was also a guy that I guess a lot of people were already talking about that I didn't really know of, and especially this album, Hurtbreak Wonderland, was an album that really caught my attention just from the album cover. But if you guys don't know, World End Girlfriend is a solo project by Japanese musician Maeda Katsuhiko, who basically was very inspired, I guess, to create music from a very young age. He was especially inspired by his father's classical music selections, and you could definitely hear the classical elements in a lot of his albums, but especially on this one, Hurtbreak Wonderland. Now, when I say classical music, I don't mean like your just regular like piano classical music. This is an album that is very hard to describe. I mean, I described it as ambient, classical, electronic, post-rock, because that's really the only kind of genres that it fits into. But listening to this album, I can definitely hear elements of industrial mixed into this, but not too heavily industrial. Like, I'm not meaning like industrial metal industrial. Like, industrial as in, like, you know, a lot of very weird clicks and whistles, and basically a lot of elements that you would hear in things like glitch hop and chiptune, and a lot of those kinds of very computer-generated noises mixed with ambient classical post-rock. Because this album really fluctuates between very calm and very frantic very quickly between all the tracks on this album. The most notable track on this album is a track called 100 Years of Choke, which is a 13-minute track, which is very, firstly, you know, very ambient classical bass, but then very quickly it kind of mishmashes into what basically sounds like a computer going berserk. I could definitely also hear elements not just of industrial, but also of Japan noise, which is, you know, a subdivision of noise music that was started in Japan by artists like Merzbow. The album kind of has this very serene element, like it's being played by a tiny little girl in a forest, just by herself with all of her music, but it also has elements that are, again, very digital, as if a computer took over the artist and was like, I'm gonna write this album for you, and I'm just gonna go berserk while I'm at it. Tracks like Ghost of a Horse Under the Chandelier, which is, you might think is a really weird album song title, but that's the name of the song, I'm telling you. Especially fits more into the industrial post-rock, almost industrial post-metal elements, with very weird time signatures that you can definitely hear some aspects of math rock and math metal involved in. But at the end of it all, I think the genre that most perfectly matches this album is ambient classical, as instruments like the piano and strings are very prominent in this track, giving the album much more of a calm undertone to it. And with this album being completely instrumental, it's a kind of a nice album just to, I guess, put in the background a little bit when you're, say, doing work, or it's definitely not an album that you can dance to, or is not an album that you can, I guess, sing to or groove to or anything. It's definitely, as it is, very ambient based. It's more of an album that you kind of just need to let play in the background as you're doing your everyday thing. Like, I've listened to this album a few times while editing videos. Like, I'm probably listening to this album right now as I'm editing this video. Sometimes it catches your attention with its weird glitch hop, chiptune kind of sounds, but then it also lets it pass with its very ambient classical sounds. So it's an album that definitely puts you in a kind of a strange emotional state, I would say. Every single track is unique, with unique time signatures, unique sounds, but overall, while the album and all the songs on the album are very chaotic, the album itself comes together in a nice, neat little package of chaotic beauty. But yeah, that is World's End Girlfriend's Hurtbreak Wonderland. But is it good though? Yeah, I'd say this is an artist that is not exactly super easily accessible to people who especially haven't heard of the more weirder side of electronic ambient and post-rock kind of music. But if you're open about it and you like the more weirder, kind of very quirky and different music, then I'd say give this album and all of his other albums a go. But guys, let me know what you think about this album. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Why not? Leave me all that kind of stuff in the comments below. And if there are any other albums that you would like me to talk about or review on the next episode of MMTISTY, then make sure to leave that also in the comments below, or you can leave it on Twitter using the hashtag MMTISTY. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next episode. Pew!